Hi everyone, welcome to the fifth session of Power BI. And this session we will be concluding the beginner course on Power BI. So let's see what we have done most of the visuals. Now one of the visuals that we have already left is something like a map. So we have different options, but certain things are available only for the premium. Now what we have is the shape map is available for a developer on a free version. So we have this information. As you know, in our data we already have some information like city, country, like that. As we know, it's an information on a which we can actually show on a map. So now let me add country. As you know, the country is United States. It will directly select the United States as the state. Okay, now let's remove it and let's add something like city over there. So such cities are needed to be selected. Now moving on, we know this store has an information like on the state, which state every store is there. So almost all the states have one or more than cities. So let's see. So in each city, each state, different cities has been selected, and the city list is in the legends. If we click on the legend, we can actually view which cities, and accordingly data will be changed. That is the functionality of the maps. Okay, moving on, the one concept that we have already seen something known as slicer in our initial videos. There is also one option with filters. Now, what is the difference between the slicer and filter? Slicer, when we provide the slicer, we are just giving the user or the person who does this, use this dashboard, a preference which he can slice the data. That is, he can decide on which data it is based on, which state it is based on, like that information. Now, I'm just removing this information now. Let's use a filter for this page number 7. Okay, so we have some subcategory information over here. As you can see, this data is for entire country. So the data, but as we know, this data is, we have been dealing with data for some time. So there is something like regions over there. So there can be a scenario in a company that when there is regions, a manager from a business manager from east need not be aware of the values on the west. So when we create a dashboard, we can actually create pages with filters so that the data set remains the same. The person who accesses the data has access only to a particular info over there. So we have a filter over here. We don't presently there is no filters on this. So we have two options basically. We can add filters on this page, or we can add filters on all the pages. But I want to add the filters on this page only, compared to region. So region, right now the filter is all, but I want only data from the central region over here. So my filter is central region, and as I can see, the data sets has been changed to indicate the values only on the central region. So once I apply of this region information, that in only that particular info can be selected over here. So that's a use of region. Filters, once we set a filter, uh, what happens is that that particular filter cannot be changed. Once we save this dashboard and give this dashboard to the user can only see the selected regions, that is the applied filters. But in case of slicer works as a filters itself, but it gives the user who views the dashboard to decide on what data he or she has to view. So that's the difference between filters and slicers. Now, another topic, so we dealt with the maps, filters, and difference between slicer and filter. Another thing in Power BI is actually the entire visuals we created is one data set, sample superstore. But we know in an organization the data need not be on a single data set, it can have multiple data sets. So now let's briefly discuss the Power Query editor, how we connect multiple data sets, and to connect the multiple data sets we use relationship rather than merging the data sets. So let's see that how it is done, so that we need to start a new one because it's already loaded. Now let's start from the beginning, loading, transforming, creating, like that. So we will understand how exactly the data sets and relationships are formed. So moving on, let's create a new report. So once it gets loaded, let me say I datasets follows the patterns that we have on database management system. So the relationships, as we have already knows, their relationships are of different types, one to one, many to one, or one to many, like that. So these are the same things that we do on Power BI also. These relationships we model it in the data in the Power Query editor and connect these datasets. Connecting the datasets and merging the datasets are different. If we have less number of items, we can merge all the datasets and create a single dataset and perform. But when we have thousands or 2000, 3000 rows of information, when we connect it with another 1000 rows, what happens is the increase data number of rows in the data increases in thousandfold. So maintaining such data will be a difficult task. So what we does is that we connect the tables using connect multiple data sets using relationships. So always merging the tables are never an optimal solution. It actually impacts the size, speed, and the dashboard working. So we always connecting the labels are a good way to perform the task. So now let's import the data. So the sample superstore is a file. So when we open it, okay, We can see in the sample store file there are three different tables: category, sample, and shipment. Earlier we took only the sample store data. Now let's take all these data and load that particular data. So if we actually look through this data set, shipment has order ID, which is unique from the sample superstore data, and ship date and ship mode are the two different data that is entered through shipment table. In category, we already have a subcategory in um, uh, we already have a subcategory in sample superstore data, and this subcategory we have to further divide it into a category based data. So that is also there, and this table is kept like this, so we can see another concept of known as promoting headers. Okay, so first let's load the data. Once it is loaded, we can actually open the data in the Power Query mode and transform the data, where we will see some features of Power Query editors, relationship views, how we can model the data, and how to manage the relationships. Okay, so the data is already loaded. Okay, so we can see three things, but before doing anything we can just transform the data. When we click on transform the data, it will connect to a Power Query editor, which will allow us to perform operations on power the data. Okay, let it get loaded. First let's see one simple activity how we transform the data. Here you can see column 1, column 2 other name, but actually we know that column 1 should get the name category, column 2 should be subcategory. So we have an option over here. Okay, to promote the headers and to change this category, subcategory to this, actually we have to click over here where the table, and we have to select the first row as headers. So this concept is known as promoted headers, and we have the activity. So in this one actually we can see what are the things that we have done. Now we have promoted the headers, so now it will see as promoted headers, and whatever we do, that SQL coding will be available over here. Power Query coding. Okay, it's actually okay. Now the thing is that we have three tables, and if we actually see the modeling, data modeling, okay, here where you have um, sample superstore is there, shipment is there, and shipment mode, shipment type is there. Now so now we have done our activities in the Power Query editor. Now we can actually choose and apply. Okay, so moving on, here we have in our Power BI desktop version, we have view, modeling. That's where we model our data, where we create the roles, parameters, and like that. So we have this manage relationships. So we have tables, but there are no relationships defined yet. So these relationships act as a connecting point for these tables. Now all these tables are independent, they have no connector. One option is we can actually auto detect it. So if we auto detect it, certain relationships is not found. So sometimes the relationships will be found. Okay, now even if it doesn't auto detect it, let's create relationships. So we have three tables. So we have to create the relationships with each. My power, if we actually, 1 second, we go to our Power Query editor. If we go to the Power Query editor, we have order ID, ship date, and ship mode on the shipment. So order ID is something that is unique. So with this order ID to our sample superstore data, which is unique, we can actually connect each other with a one-to-one relationship. So let's connect that. So my first relationship will be sample store, where I will select the order ID, and I would like to connect it to shipment, where I have the order ID. So we can actually have one-to-one relationship, and cardinality cross filtered regression is both, so that we can actually uh, have connections on both the sides. So that connection is actually added, and we can actually, if we need more another many to one relation, we can change it over there, and then we can actually give okay to whatever. So now we need another thing, relationship with category and subcategory. So we have to first select sample store, and that we can select the thing like a subcategory, and here we have category, which we have subcategory column, and there are many to many relationships, and which we have. Let's give okay. So these two relationships are formed, and close. And actually we let it get loaded. We can see what it is in the schematic view. So we have this model view in Power BI, where we have connections formed between these three tables, so that we can actually access each table to create a single visual from these three tables. This can be done on any number of products. This is how we work on multiple data sets. That's also very important concept on Power BI, that we know the data need not be always on a single table. There will be multiple tables where this is how we we connect to each of our data in this way. And now we can move on to visual report view and create a very simple visual on something like a column chart using two different data from two different tables. Okay, so let's have categories in new data, and the profit is from this. So let's see how the profit from new categories. Different categories are over there: technology, office supplies, furniture. If you see, both of them are different data from multiple data sets. So category from this, we don't have any category in the sample superstore, but it is connected to the profit, so we can actually get the profit from each category. And now if you want to divide this profit by region, let's do that too. Okay, so each profit region, that concept is now we are using. And now I would like to know the profit different category by shipment mode. There is something known as shipment mode. So how the data is shipped. So first class, same day, second class, standard class, a shipment mode. So if you look into this visual, we had three tables: shipment, category, and our total sales data. Three different info from this thing. Category is in the category table, profit is in the sales data, shipment mode is in the shipment table. They are connected together and we created a meaningful visual. So this is how we manage multiple data sets in Power BI. So we dealt with major visualizations, data sets, things on Power BI. Now when whatever we worked was a desktop version, which is actually free if we download Power BI desktop version. Then for a single user, there is a pro version which we require the license um, for the single user. And we have premium version, which is organizational license. We need pro versions to actually, you need a school or work mail ID to actually share or publish your reports. It's simply nothing but when if you want to publish, you just go home, take the home button, and you will have a direct publish button. Click over it. Since it is signed, it will be published onto the, do you want to make the changes, save the changes, then it will get published onto the version. So save this file and we can do it. It's just a user friendly platform over there, but you only the pro versions, desktop version, you can work on data, you can create your dashboards, you do all the activities. But to publish, we need a pro version, or we can have it on a free trial basis also. Otherwise, on a developer mode, it is a licensed version. So that's about the Power BI. We dealt with most of the basic concepts of Power BI. And thank you, everyone.